Welcome to the Chamber Chat. My name is Jill Raycroft, and I'm here on behalf of the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, sharing with you some of our Connect, Represent, and Share segments that introduce you to the work we do and how we're part of the community. Each week I share a newsletter with our members, and thanks to YourTV for letting me share some of the highlights with you. So I want to welcome you back to the Chamber Chat on YourTV. And this is our representing segment where we talk about how the Chamber advocates on behalf of business and represents them as the voice of business. And joining me today is Toddsmith, our MPP. So I want to thank you for joining us here.
Thanks, Jill. Glad to join you.
Yeah, and I think maybe I just want to talk a little bit about, of course, we've had a great announcement in the recent past here, and we're looking forward to being green. And, you know, some people have referred to Kermit saying it's not always easy being green, but boy, that's where we want to be. And a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, we actually had a conversation with you. You joined us with the Quinte West and the Prince Edward County Chambers of Commerce. And the three of us gathered a number of our members together to talk about the challenges, of course, that business is facing. And Proudmeet Zakaria was very complimentary, or he certainly extolled the virtues of having you as our MPP and how you are a very large, loud voice for us at Queen's Park. So maybe you could share a little bit about how what we say to you here gets translated over to Queen's Park and whether or not that had anything to do with Hastings, Prince Edward being one of the first regions announced green.
There's no question that I have a big, loud voice, and I think it's more about my radio background than anything. And I am certainly large. So it's really easy to say I'm a large, loud voice at the cabinet table at Queen's Park. But the one thing that I really try and do, and I think the local chambers do a fantastic job at this as well, is making sure that I'm understanding the challenges that businesses are facing in our local region. And I've always enjoyed, being that voice at Queen's Park so that, the decision makers there, and keep in mind for 7 years, I was an opposition MPP. I was a critic for small business and red tape as well when I first started my political career way back in 2011, 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. But I did spend a lot of time speaking with small business owners, chambers of commerce, organizations like the Canadian Federation of Independent Business and others, and representing their voice at the legislature in question period. Now I have the unique opportunity, and I've had it for the last 2.5 years, to be sitting at that table, that cabinet table, the executive council, the one that's making the decisions. And, so I have the experience that I can draw on from 10 years of talking to small businesses.
And welcome back to the Chamber Chat. Joining us now is Will Wilkinson, founder of Wilkinson and Company. Will Wilkinson came to the Quinte region from Montreal, initially as an accountant with a firm that had a number of clients here. He thought it was a good location to establish a branch and convinced the company to do so. They did, but the accountant they hired decided that he didn't want to stay, and Wilf was then sent down to take on the task for a year. At that point, he and his wife fell in love with the area and opted to stay. There's a bigger story to that, but we don't have a lot of time, and I think you want to hear from him. Something I love about his story is that you came from away, but you made this your home. And as we struggle with youth migration to the cities away from rural communities, I think you have an amazing story, and you are super supportive of so many youth in this area. Do you think it's easier maybe for someone to start a business in a smaller community? And once you got here, do you think there was more opportunity for you here than you might have found in Montreal?
Well, that's a good question, Jill. And some are hard to answer easily. To a certain extent, it depends on the type of business that you are trying to start. Naturally, if you want to start a manufacturing business, it's hey. On the other hand, if you want to sell to and you have the proper connections, start a car dealership, well then that's probably a lot easier. Either way, it depends. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of dedication to the idea that you are trying to hit. Certainly, luck has something to do with it as well. I had no intention of coming to Trenton. I shouldn't say that. I had been to Trenton many times for many years before I moved here, or before we moved here as a family. Uh, but and that was because during the 50s, business was booming. Times were great, and but then in '59, the economy fell apart, and smaller companies were having far more difficulty. As a result, as I think I may have explained, that we used to have to travel up from Montreal. It was at least 4.5 hours drive, and to come up for a client to discuss their financial problems at the bank, and then drive back to Montreal was an impossibility.